What was your journey walking into that assignment, having an understanding about trafficking in our country, in the state where you're working, and in our world?
Yeah, well, it's funny how God works, right? I mean, human trafficking wasn't something that I was particularly concerned about as I was going through my educational journey. But fortunately, I think it's something that God was very concerned about. And so, unexpectedly, I found myself working at the Michigan Attorney General's office. And in that role, very, very shortly after I began working there, I was placed on the state's very first Commission on Human Trafficking, which was organized by then Attorney General Bill Schuette. And in that capacity, I was able to learn a great deal from a variety of statewide stakeholders about what human trafficking looks like domestically, what it's not, and some ways to push back against it. So fortunately, when I joined the FBI, I already had that background sort of laid down. And so it helped me to walk in with that understanding so that I could begin to investigate the violations from more of a frontline perspective, if you will.
Okay, so can you tell us what domestic trafficking is and what it is not?
I sure can. So, I guess just to set forth a basic definition of human trafficking. So, trafficking is the commercial exploitation of another person for sex or labor services through force, fraud, or coercion. And so when you're commercially exploiting somebody, what you're doing is you're wronging them and you're profiting from it. So there's a monetary transaction that's occurring here. So if you can think of it as a commercial or a business transaction, that will help to clarify the violation for you a great deal. So trafficking is not the same thing as smuggling. You don't have to move somebody from point A to point B in order to traffic them. The only thing that you have to do is exploit them for profit by means of force, fraud, or coercion. So typically what that looks like is physical violence. It means defrauding somebody through promises of a better life. Or most commonly, what we see is somebody who's coerced by means of drug use, where somebody is controlling or facilitating another person's access to a controlled substance. Most of the time, it's crack cocaine and heroin, and sometimes meth, for other than legitimate medical purposes. When you're doing that, you're coercing somebody for purposes of human trafficking.
That's so interesting because I think the definition that you just gave, especially around the use of drugs, is one that people would not commonly think of as trafficking, as withholding something other than a medical reason, and that coercion. And is that, would you say, in your work, would that be one of the most common domestic ways that we see trafficking, or what is the most common domestic way?
I would say it is the most common domestic
Okay.
way. So, let me clarify. I love Liam Neeson, and Taken. The first Taken is fantastic. It's one of the best action movies ever. Two and three, not so much, but number one, fantastic.
Isn't that usually
But
how it is though, Nate? Like the first one, you're like amazing. You get to number three and you're like, what are we actually doing here anymore? Yeah.
I mean, Pirates won, the best Pirates. After that, it's all way
Right.
downhill. But anyway, so the picture of human trafficking that was painted in that movie is in many ways, in my view, what put the issue on the public radar, on the
Mm.
public consciousness. But I will tell you that at the Bureau, we do not often see situations where an individual is forcibly kidnapped and then placed into a situation where they are being forced into prostitution. It is far more common for somebody to be groomed and exploited online, which then devolves into an in-person meeting, which then further devolves into an addiction, which is perpetuated and the individual is sold in order to continue to get the next hit of that addiction.